What if a homeless boy saw something that could take down the wealthiest man in the city and saved him instead? In today's cinematic true story, a 10-year-old boy named Noah, invisible to the world around him, stumbles upon a deadly secret during a high-class lunch at the Park and Elm Café. What he does next shocks everyone and turns him into an unexpected hero. This story is more than just suspense. It's about courage, justice, and how sometimes the people we overlook are the ones who see the truth most clearly. If you're a fan of undercover boss moments, social justice narratives, and emotional storytelling that stirs the soul, stay with us. Because by the end of this tale, you might just look at the world a little differently. The Park and Elm Café was where power dressed in silk and dined with a view. Tucked between perfectly trimmed hedges and the soft hush of a marble fountain, it was the kind of place where millionaires met for lunch and the waiters remembered your wine preference better than your own family did. Midday sunlight spilled across linen-covered tables, silver cutlery clinked, laughter floated like perfume, and the air smelled of warm baguettes and blooming jasmine. But just outside the ornate patio railing, beyond the neatly arranged tables and curated elegance, stood a boy. He didn't belong here. That much was obvious. Noah was small for his age, maybe 10 or 11, wrapped in a hoodie 2 sizes too big, its sleeves damp and fraying. His shoes were mismatched, his eyes sharp from hunger, not just for food, but for safety, for something. That made sense in a world that had often turned its back on him. He lingered near the edge, one hand gripping the iron fence, the other tucked into his pocket. No one paid him any mind. He was invisible to them, just another smudge on a clean window. But Noah wasn't watching the decor or the fountain. He was watching Table 7. At that table sat Richard Langston, the kind of man whose name came with whispers and commas. At 72, he was a towering figure in the business world, a self-made real estate magnate turned CEO with hands in tech, finance, even aviation. He wore a charcoal gray suit tailored so perfectly it could slice the air. His gold-rimmed, glasses framed sharp, tired eyes as he glanced over the lunch menu, his fingers occasionally brushing the rim of a crystal glass. Opposite him sat Celeste Langston, his much younger wife. She was beautiful in the way marble is, flawless, cold, unyielding. Her black hair fell in waves over her shoulders, and her red lipstick curved like an artist's final stroke. She smiled when he looked up, but never long enough to convince anyone it was real. Her fingers idly toyed with a diamond bracelet. Her phone screen always within reach. To Noah, they looked like royalty, the food on their table like something out of a fairy tale. Then something shifted. Richard's attention drifted to his phone, and Celeste, almost casually, reached into her handbag. Noah's eyes narrowed. He wasn't sure why he noticed. Maybe it was the slight tremble in her wrist. Maybe it was the tiny glass vial that caught a glint of sunlight. Maybe it was instinct. She tilted her hand, and a clear liquid slid into Richard's soup. One smooth motion, no hesitation. Then she stirred the bowl like nothing had happened, like it was just lunch. Noah froze. His heartbeat thudded in his ears. Did he really see that? Was this real? Then Celeste leaned forward and whispered, just loud enough for the boy to catch. "After all I've done, you won't ruin this now." And just like that, the world snapped into focus. Noah wasn't just hungry anymore. He was about to make a choice that would change everything. Noah crouched lower, heart pounding like fists against his ribcage. His mind raced, tangled in disbelief. Did he really just witness someone poisoning a man? Or was it a trick of light, hunger-induced hallucination? But no, he knew what he saw. The vial, the pour, the whisper. It wasn't an accident. It was deliberate. He looked back at the couple. Celeste was smiling again, like nothing had happened. Her lips curled around small talk. Her fingers traced the rim of her wine glass with lazy elegance. But Noah couldn't stop staring at the bowl of soup. Richard lifted his spoon. Slowly. Absent-mindedly. Like it was just another bite in a lifetime of perfect lunches. Noah's breath caught in his throat. Every instinct screamed, walk away. This wasn't his world. No one would believe him. What could a homeless kid possibly say that would make anyone listen? But Richard's hand was halfway to his mouth now, and that bowl wasn't just soup anymore. It was a death sentence. Noah stood. His legs trembled. His stomach ached. But he pushed past the fear, past the fence, and toward the table. "Don't eat that," he shouted, his voice cracking under the weight of urgency. Conversations halted mid-sentence. Glasses paused mid-air. Every head turned. Richard froze, spoon inches from his lips. Celeste's head snapped around, her eyes slicing through the air. "What did you just say?" she hissed. Noah didn't back down. His voice wavered, but it rose above the stunned silence. "She put something in your food. I saw her." The café held its breath. Forks clattered against porcelain. Chairs shifted. Someone gasped. Richard blinked, first at Noah, then at his wife. His brow furrowed beneath his glasses. "What's going on?" he asked, setting the spoon back into the bowl. Celeste's face twisted into outrage. "You little liar," she spat. "How dare you say that? Who even let you in here?" Noah swallowed, fists clenched at his sides. "I saw her," he said again, more firmly. "She poured something into your soup when you weren't looking." His voice was clear now, solid, and people listened. Richard looked back at Celeste. "Is that true?" She let out a sharp laugh, a sound more blade than mirth. "He's just a street rat looking for attention, or food. Look at him." But Richard didn't look away from the bowl. "Smell it," Noah insisted. "Or get someone to test it. You'll see." Celeste's facade started to fracture. Her eyes darted between the bowl, Richard, and the crowd forming around them. A waiter hesitated nearby, wide-eyed. Richard held up a hand. "Can someone get—" "The manager?" he said, his voice low but steady. Celeste's voice pitched up. "This is absurd. Are you seriously entertaining this? Over the word of that?" Noah stepped forward. "If you don't believe me, call someone. Anyone. Just don't eat that, please." Richard's gaze bore into the boy. A moment passed. Then he leaned back in his chair and let out a breath. "Celeste," he said, "what exactly did you do?" She stood abruptly, her chair scraping back with a screech. "I'm not listening to this nonsense." But Richard's voice hardened. "You've been acting strange for weeks, distant, nervous. This explains too much." The murmurs in the café grew louder. Phones were now recording. Faces once buried in menus now stared, unblinking. Celeste's hands curled into fists. "Are you really going to believe him? Some filthy little liar from the streets?" But Richard didn't respond to her. Instead, he turned to the waiter. "Call the police." A ripple of surprise swept through the room. Celeste's mask shattered. "Don't you dare," she snapped. "This is just a misunderstanding. You're overreacting." Noah felt a strange, calm settle in his chest. He'd done what he could. He told the truth. Now it was up to them. Richard's expression never wavered. If there's nothing to hide, then there's nothing to fear. Celeste's breathing grew rapid. Her fingers trembled around the strap of her purse. "You can't do this." But Richard didn't flinch. A moment later, the waiter returned. "The police are on their way." All eyes returned to Celeste. She looked around, at the cameras, the waiters, the man she married, and the boy who ruined it all. And for the first time, she looked afraid. Celeste stood frozen. Her carefully painted face was beginning to show cracks, not the cosmetic kind, but the ones pride couldn't conceal. The murmurs around her had become a low roar. Patrons whispered behind cupped hands, cameras still rolling, capturing every twitch, every flicker of emotion. Some faces were curious, others disgusted. The sound of approaching sirens sliced through the tense air. Richard didn't look at her. His eyes were on the soup, the spoon, the decision he almost made. "Noah," he said quietly, addressing the boy. "You said you saw something. Tell them." The boy stepped forward. His voice was firmer now, steadier than even he expected. She took a small bottle from her purse, like medicine. It had clear liquid. She poured it into the soup while you were looking at your phone, then stirred it. Celeste let out a scoff, but her voice cracked at the edges. You little parasite. You've been spying on us, haven't you? Noah didn't respond. He just kept his eyes on Richard. I couldn't just watch it happen. The front door of the cafe burst open, and 2 officers entered. The chatter dulled instantly. One officer approached the table with practiced calm. We received a call. What's going on here? Richard gestured to the bowl. This young man believes my wife poisoned my food. The officer's expression didn't shift. Is that true? He asked Celeste directly. Her jaw clenched. Of course not. He's just a kid from the street trying to cause a scene. But the other officer leaned down to sniff the bowl. He paused, then turned to Richard. Do you have any medical conditions we should know about? Richard blinked. Hypertension. Why? The officer straightened. If what the boy says is true, even a small amount of certain substances could be dangerous. The first officer nodded toward Celeste. Ma'am, we'll need to test this. Suddenly Celeste lashed out. You can't do this, she shouted. This is absurd. He was never supposed to make it this far. The silence shattered. You could hear a pin drop, even Noah's breath caught in his throat. What did you just say? Richard asked, his voice like ice. Celeste's eyes darted wildly. The mask had fully fallen now, revealing something bitter beneath. He controlled everything, she hissed. Every dollar, every plan. I was just a decoration. I was supposed to be free of him by now. You tried to kill me, Richard said slowly. You really did it. The officers didn't hesitate. One pulled out cuffs while the other stepped between her and the table. Celeste Langston, the lead officer, said, You're under arrest for attempted murder. Please place your hands where we can see them. She struggled briefly, shouting curses, her designer bag falling to the floor with a heavy thud, too heavy for a purse. A glass vial rolled out and clinked against the tile. No one needed a lab test anymore. As she was led away, her voice rang out across the cafe. You'll regret this, all of you. He was mine to ruin. Richard didn't move. The cafe slowly began to breathe again. Chairs creaked, whispers returned, but no one dared leave. It wasn't every day that a high society scandal unfolded live in front of their salad. Noah remained standing, his hands trembling now that the adrenaline had faded. Then Richard looked at him, truly looked at him, and in that moment he didn't see a homeless kid. He saw a boy who had just saved his life. Sit, he said gently, gesturing to the chair across from him. Noah hesitated, then obeyed, sitting on the edge of the chair like he wasn't sure he was allowed. You saved me, Richard said. And I don't even know your last name. Noah shrugged. It's just Noah. And I didn't do it for anything, I just couldn't watch. Richard nodded slowly. Most people would have. They would have walked away, pretended not to see. He took a long sip of water and leaned back, his shoulders dropping for the first time since the chaos began. I've built empires, he said. Bought and sold companies, cities even. But none of that matters if I'm blind to the people, right in front of me. Noah looked down, unsure of what to say. Richard reached into his pocket, pulled out a phone, and made a call. He stepped away for a moment, voice low. When he returned, his tone had changed. Noah, he said, I called someone I trust. They're going to come pick you up. Make sure you have a place to sleep. A real meal, something more than this. Noah's eyes widened. Why? Richard offered a small smile. Because you didn't ask for anything, and that tells me you deserve everything. A beat of silence. Then Noah whispered, I've never had anyone say that to me before. Richard looked him in the eye. Well, you do now. And for the first time in years, Noah felt something warm blooming in his chest, a feeling he hadn't dared name in a long time. Hope. The cafe, once buzzing with polished laughter and clinking glassware, now hummed with a different kind of energy. No one was thinking about appetizers anymore. They were thinking about Noah, the boy who came out of nowhere, the boy who shouldn't have been seen, and yet, he was the only one who saw the truth. Across the table, Richard Langston sat in silence. The spoon that nearly carried his death now rested beside an untouched bowl. His hand still trembled slightly, but not from fear, from realization. He looked at Noah, really looked at him. Not as a disruption, but as someone who had done what no bodyguard, lawyer, or advisor ever could. He had saved his life. Noah sat quietly, unsure what to do now. His shoulders were still tight, fingers still fidgeting with the frayed cuffs of his hoodie. He wasn't used to silence without judgment. He wasn't used to being safe. "You don't have to be afraid anymore," Richard said, his voice low. "That boy outside the fence, he's gone." Noah didn't answer. He wasn't ready to believe it. Richard leaned forward, his gaze steady. "You reminded me today that trust doesn't come in a tailored suit. It walks in wearing torn shoes and speaks up when everyone else stays quiet." A long pause. Then, Richard added, "I'd like to see you again, not just for today. You've got a seat at this table, Noah, whenever you want it." The words hit harder than any applause could have. Noah blinked fast, his voice caught in his throat. He nodded once, still unsure how to say thank you for something that big. As the last of the patrons filtered out, some with lingering glances, others offering small nods of respect, Richard stood and placed a hand on Noah's shoulder. "You changed my story," he said. "Maybe it's time someone helped you write yours." Noah looked up. Not down, not away. Up. And for the first time in his life, the world didn't feel so far above him. Noah didn't just speak up. He saved a life, shattered a lie, and found something deeper than safety: belonging. But this isn't the end of his journey. Because what if this boy, left behind by the system, was suddenly pulled into the inner circle of a billionaire? What if the next lie he uncovered came from inside the walls of power itself? In Part 2, The CEO's Second Chance, Richard Langston invites Noah into his world. But the higher you rise, the darker the secrets, and Noah is about to see just how far some people will go to silence the truth. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you never miss another tale of courage, truth, and redemption. Because sometimes it's the quietest voice that echoes the loudest.